Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ascension Podcast. I'm your host, Paul James Caiden, and joining me today is Mr. Kevin Town, a fellow YouTuber. And we're going to be talking about missing 411 and invisible creatures, things that we can't see that may be lurking right around us in the woods, in our backyard. Who knows? So, Kevin, welcome to the show today. Good to have you.
Thank you.
It's been a while. Kevin was on my show, a few times back when I had the spirit side. So this is our first one in a while, and our first one that's not over the phone. So
Yeah.
or on Zoom, and this is weird for us.
Yeah. But I'm sure the audio will be far better than over a phone.
Oh, hell yeah, definitely. But you've always had an interest in the missing 411.
Yeah.
And you recently just had a video about it. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts, what you think is going on there when people just disappear into thin air.
Well, my thoughts on it is that just because based on the investigations and the evidence or lack thereof, is that these people are disappearing into thin air. Something is taking these people because as humans, we're physical objects, and there should be evidence when somebody goes missing other than just personal items like clothing and footwear, backpacks, outdoor gear. There should be physical evidence as far as what happened to these people when they went missing. And not always are their items found, but when they are found, there should be a logical explanation, and what happened to the person should also be found, whether if it's bones or tissue or whatever. There should be evidence of what happened to these people. And a lot of times, more times than not, that lacks to where they have no idea where these people went. Because even if somebody were out in a national park, out in the Midwest or wherever, because there's a lot of large predatory animals in the woods. We're not at the top of the food chain when we're out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's large animals that can take, the strongest a person down. And if that were to be the case, there would be evidence of that. There would be evidence of a struggle. There would be evidence of, say, blood, hair and skin tissue, whatever. Or if they found like personal items, like footwear, maybe there'd be a human foot in it, indicative that they were attacked and maybe ripped apart and eaten upon before investigators came along searching the area. But a lot of times that's not the case. It's as if these people just vanished off the face of the earth, never to be seen or heard from again. And so my thought on it is it can only be just a few things to deal with. And when somebody goes missing, they're either found and it's due to natural reasons, natural causes, whether they succumb to a medical issue and they passed away and then animals had their way with them because they were out there being vulnerable, just laying there deceased, or they were attacked by an animal, and or you got foul play. You can't rule that out either. But there again, that would show signs, because I don't care how strong a person is, a serial killer trying to carry off somebody that weighs, say, 200 pounds is not an easy task in rough terrain country. It would take a lot of work. So there's going to be signs indicative of what possibly happened to the person. But a lot of these cases don't include that. It rules those things out. So it's as if these people were taken, however they were taken, and they're never seen or heard from again. So that, in my mind, and I'm no expert in this by any means. I'm no specialist, but when it comes to common sense, which all of us should have, that it just tells you then something else happened. And there's really not that many things that could happen outside of what I mentioned. So if they disappeared and they're never found again, or they were searched for weeks on end until the search was exhausted and people just lost hope and chalked it up to a mystery. And then they would go back out and maybe give it another try. And then the person is found in the very area where it was extensively searched. And that's what they can't explain on the cases where the person was ultimately found, even though it was much, much later. That I think still is the same thing as if they're never found. And I'll give you an example is that, and I've said this before, that if you go fishing on a virgin lake and those fish have never had to deal with a human being, they've never seen a lure or any artificial bait or anything like that. They've never had an experience with it. And then all of a sudden, a fisherman comes along, fishes the water for the first time, and the fish takes that bait and they reel the fish in and the person holds it up and this is catch and release. And that fish is staring right at you. And if that fish has got vision to see everything that it preys upon and feeds upon and swims in its environment, there's no reason why that fish would not see you when you're holding it outside of its element. Because if you think about water and air, it's two different worlds. They live in a world we can't exist in and vice versa. We can't live underwater. So when you take it out of its world and it's looking at you and then you put it back and it returns to its world as if a human returns to this planet. And if that fish could talk like a human and tell all its friends and family that, you know, something took me out of this world and brought me back, and this is what I saw, what would the other fish in that lake think? Would they believe it? Well, it's very similar to what I think is happening to us. It's like we're an ant farm and something is having its way with us. And the ones that do show up later after an extensive search has been done is because that person was examined or admired or whatever for a short time and then was thrown back like that fish. But just like a fish, if you don't return it to the water within a certain amount of time, there's a window. That fish won't survive when you put it back. When you do catch and release, that fish has to be returned to the water in under a minute. If you keep it out of the water too long, it gets starved from oxygen and that fish will die. You throw it back and it'll just float in the lake and that'll be it. It won't be able to survive. So I think the people that are returned and put in a place where it was extensively searched, that's what happened. They were taken somewhere where a human being is outside of the elements that we were designed to dwell in. And so when we were thrown back too late. And that's why these people are found dead, naked, and strange things that were done to them. And the ones that don't return are like the fisherman that keeps the fish and takes it home to fillet it and cook it. So some are thrown back, some are kept. This is what I think is happening. But what is doing this remains a mystery. But I do know that in this world, without even having to leave this world, that there are things, and this is a fact, that exist in our world that is outside of our visual capabilities. This is why we have infrared. This is why we have other technology, so it can see things that we can't see with the naked eye because our eyesight is limited. And to give you a perfect quick example is that on many occasions, while in my living room doing some research, I will notice suddenly that both of my cats will stare down the hallway and they are fixed on something that they see. And when I look down the hallway, I see nothing, but I can tell that they're actually watching something because their heads will turn in unison and then they'll back up a little bit and then they'll look again. And then if it scares them, they run away. They're watching and seeing something that has gained their attention, but yet I can't see it with my eyes. So I think it's something that has the ability, whether if it's through a different type of vibration, a different type of frequency, to where, say, for instance, like Bigfoot, if somebody says they saw a tall, bipedal, upright, hairy creature walking through the woods, and then as it passed behind some trees, it didn't come out on the other side and it just vanished into thin air. It doesn't mean that the creature necessarily vanished. It just changed a frequency to where it goes outside of those perimeters that we physically have when it comes to our vision, to where it can cloak itself and it could still be present, but we just can't visually see it. So this is what I think is happening. Something that can be seen at will when it wants to be seen for a short time, and then it can go invisible, for lack of a better term, And but it's still present. It can still be there, and we could be watched by these beings, whatever they are. They could be all around us, because I've had the experiences while out in the woods where I never feel alone, and that's
Hmm.
only in recent times. So the evidence is there to suggest that this could possibly be what's going on, and I think it warrants better research and people looking into this part of it as an answer to these cases.
Yeah, it definitely seems that back in the day, people would say they heard something strange in the woods or seen something, but it's really seems like it's ramped up now over the last probably decade or less. It seems like everybody's going out, they're hearing things, they're seeing things. There's the reports of the invisible creatures that look like they're made out of saran wrap that people see in the
Right.
trees or walking through the forest. And something's definitely going on, whether we're doing something that's drawing these beings to us. And I want to put a book up on the screen real quick that I read years ago, if I can get that into focus, because I seen some things. I used to live where there was a lot of woods, and I spent a lot of time, just hanging out in the woods, walking, and whatever. And I seen a lot of bizarre things, and we'll tell some of those stories later as we get into the invisible creature aspect. But I always thought, geez, what people call Bigfoot, Mothman, all of these type of things probably are from another dimension.
Yeah.
And it was John Keel that I believe it was this book, Our Haunted Earth, that first talked about they exist in a different dimension, but yet they're a part of our world. And maybe they interact with us, and maybe sometimes not in such a friendly way, because of what we're doing to the earth. We're
Right.
setting off bombs, we're polluting, we're pretty much raping the planet. And so maybe our survival depends, their survival depends on us. We blow this place off or up or set off a nuclear bomb, well, that could affect the realities that's just beyond the veil, that frequency that they exist in.
Right.
So, I think that's an interesting theory that, you know, maybe we're endangering ourselves, but other things too,
Hmm.
and if we get too big for our britches, we might find out we're not top of the food chain. We're not so smart,
Right.
right now in the Ukraine, I don't know, you've probably seen articles or videos about this with the war going on over there. There's people all over Ukraine filming lights in the sky, UFOs all over the place,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. They definitely seem to be interested in our activity here on planet Earth. And I know that there's been many people that have been in the position to know when it comes to different nuclear sites, the different silos and where they keep these horrific weapons, that something would park itself right over top of the
Mhm.
facility and would be able to take over the nuclear computers, the codes. They would be able to basically disable the entire system, and and render it useless. And then they can also reverse it, and then turn everything back on to where it can be manned again. So something has the ability to control that at will. But for me, I feel, and though I agree with that, and I think that there are entities out there that are paying attention to the activities that man is doing on this planet, but I sometimes wonder if there isn't other ones, because when you look at the human race, and just how though we're the same, we can be very different too. I mean, there's people out there that are of different color, different types of eyes and hair color, height, and being short, and so on. And so when it comes to these foreign entities that come from somewhere other than Earth, and I think that there could be good ones and there could be bad ones. And so
Mhm.
my feeling on it is that the reason why activity has ramped up in just the last X amount of years, like you mentioned, is because I see it kind of like when you live in a neighborhood, as an example. And for many, many years, decades possibly, the neighborhood has always been nice. You always knew your neighbors, you knew everybody, there was never a problem in the neighborhood. And then over time, some of the homes got sold off and were bought up by, say, like a co-op or somebody that wanted to become a landlord and get into the rental business. And then it starts bringing in a different crowd, a different type of people.
Mhm.
And it can change your neighborhood. If that continues, it can literally turn the neighborhood from what it used to be into something else. And then everything comes with it, with the crime, the noise pollution, so on and so forth. So eventually everything gets discovered and it changes because of the discovery. I've
Mhm.
seen where land in the forest has changed because when I used to use it and discovered it, and it was kind of like a well kept secret, it changed once others learned of the place. And then you would see that there was more litter. You would see
Mhm.
that there was more disregard for nature and damage, people cutting down live trees and debarking trees, pounding nails into trees. And you would just see how people would disrespect it because
Yeah.
word got out. Well, that's why I think we're seeing things ramp up, is because I think that though these other entities that you mentioned that are watching and looking out for humanity and kind of being a steward for this planet to make sure that we don't get out of control, I think that there's other things that have recently discovered us. And now that it's discovered us, it's coming here and it's doing these things. And it's not, necessarily interested in the same things that the other entities are interested in, as far as making sure we don't get out of control and damage, our environment and so on. I think these things are more sinister and have a different agenda, to where
Mhm.
maybe they're more curious with us versus the planet we dwell on. And they would like to study us and understand how we work, what we eat, how do we survive, what we're made of, and how we, repopulate and stuff like that. So that's what I think a lot of it is, because when you look at the movies that they make, a lot of times, and you can find this to be true, a lot of times that movies that have been made throughout the years that were based on fiction aren't fiction at all. It's
Yeah.
actually based on fact. And this is where the ideas come to them. These
Mhm.
producers that put out these Hollywood motion pictures, is that they have an inside knowledge to things that aren't, it's not the same stuff that is available to you and I at street level. Just like the government always has knowledge that we will never have, the higher ups have. They're part of that clan, to where those are the people that are allowed to know things the rest of us are not. And so I think that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, even right down to the technology we use today because of the rapid advancement. We made a huge leap. Where did that come from? I don't
Yeah.
think that was by accident. So these things that are going on in the woods, like you spoke of, these saran wrap creatures, I've heard many accounts of that. And I've been seeing things to where it can cloak itself in the woods. My first experience was back in '89 with that very type creature, to where I could not see it, but I could sense its presence. I felt it walk past me. It was very large, much taller than myself. It basically went by me as if I wasn't even there. So could it
Mhm.
see me, or was it seeing something else? Just like I couldn't see it, maybe it couldn't see me. We were like in two different dimensions, but we were right at the border, to
Mhm.
where part of its energy came to my side and maybe some of my energy went to its side, but we passed in that space and time. And to this day, I don't know what it was, but it made an awful sound coming up onto the road, from the woods on the one side of the road, crossed past me, and then it continued on into the parcel of land that was on the other side of the road. So it was definitely something was there, but it did not touch me. It didn't seem like it was interested in me. I just happened to be in its path of where this thing was traveling. So,
Mhm.
and that was the only time for many, many years that I had an experience like that. And it wasn't until recent times to where it's really ramped up. And for me personally, it's been within like the last 3 years, to where, because I'm 51, I've been in the outdoors since I was 5. And all those years growing up as a young kid, well into my teens, and then into being a young adult, being in the outdoors, fishing, hiking, camping, canoeing, doing all kinds of stuff, never ever had experiences outside of that one day in 1989 on Whitaker Road. So between then and just within the last 3 years, there was nothing, that was even remotely close to some type of cloaking or invisible creature. But in the last 3 years now, things have really changed in the woods. So much so, Paul, that as you know, I camp in my Toyota van
Hmm.
that I made like an RV, and the things that I've heard and seen in the last few years, I don't even feel safe sleeping in a vehicle locked at night.
I
And so
wouldn't
I
either.
couldn't imagine being in a tent. And I still have the damage on my van from where my van was attacked. And though I can't prove what did it, I speculate that it could have been a large black bear, just because I don't have a whole lot of belief in Bigfoot, but I do have an open mind. But something definitely attacked my van. It was very large, very heavy. It made my van feel like it just wouldn't hold up to what this thing was. And that's why I had to get out of there in time, because I knew it was going to take the doors off of it. The
Hmm.
scratches are still all over the van, top to bottom. And and then up at Pineapple Junction, and these two places where the van got attacked to Pineapple Junction, if you were to draw a straight line between the two locations, it's 5 miles. But to drive the roads to get from one location to another, it's 10. So there is no road to take in a straight line. However, these two locations are connected via a network of trails. So what happened down at South Valley where the van was attacked, and the things that have been going on up at Pineapple Junction, whatever is in the woods can travel from either location back and forth via this network of trails.
Hmm.
And so I keep that in mind when I stay at these locations. But the things that happen up at Pineapple Junction are far worse and really need to be investigated, because there's a lot of paranormal things that are going on up there that I cannot explain. And the things that have gone on up there have been probably to date the scariest things that I've ever had to deal with while being out in the remote woods alone.
Hmm.
They've been the worst I've ever experienced.
I'm curious where you live in New York State. Was it like a big area for like the Indians back in the day, like Indian territory?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, because where I used to live was a place called Middletown, New York, in Orange County, and there were burial grounds all over the place. Every year when they used to have the Orange County Fair, there would be this massive thunderstorm, and they called it the Orange County Fair curse, because the fair was right on a burial ground, you know.
Mhm.
And it's just such an area where so many things have happened. So many people have had paranormal experiences, myself included. Where I grew up, it was like the Amityville horror. So many weird things happened to all the kids in the neighborhood. And I have to wonder sometimes if that doesn't have something to do with it. Did the Native Americans, they had many gods, nature gods? Did they summon something? Did they keep something at bay that they thought were evil spirits, and were
Mhm.
completely unaware of them and do nothing to keep them at bay? So they're getting more and more numerous and more brazen, in some of these areas.
Right. Well, I definitely believe in that. And because the Indians were really into spiritualism and being in touch with the land. And
Hmm.
they would separate a lot of the elements in life up to separate gods. They'd say there was God of the wind, God of fire, God of the sky. And
Hmm.
so they believed that there was gods in charge of various elements of life here on planet Earth. But yes, I do think that that holds some merit, because the Indians have always had a way of, uh, interacting with that which we don't understand.
Hmm.
And now up at Pineapple Junction, I know that on the opposite side of the road, and the reason why they call it a junction, it's right in the middle of an X. And
Hmm.
you can drive by the place, you can go into the place. There's a network of dirt roads up there that go in all directions for several miles, all remote, nobody around, no homes, no camps, no nothing. There's no electricity, absolutely nothing out there, but just heavily wooded forests. And on the opposite side of Pineapple Junction, on which would be on the north side of the dirt road that goes back into thousands and thousands of acres, is a series of mounds. And if you
Mm,
got out a tape measure, they're exactly the same distance apart. And these mounds are long enough and wide enough to where a human, a 6 foot tall human being could be buried beneath these mounds. Now, whether if it's an Indian burial ground, I don't know, but it was, if you dig through the top layer of the earth, you come into rocks that have been piled up to make these mounds what they are. And I don't want to disturb them, and I don't want to do anything with them because of that reason, because I believe in Indian curses and things like that. And I just don't want to bring any bad karma up on myself, but they're there. And this year I'm going to be going up and doing some video of it once the road opens after April 1st, because it is seasonal roads up in there. They don't plow it in the wintertime. You can only get there by sled, snowmobile. And
mhm,
so I'm going to be doing videos of it, and I'm going to be staying up there again by myself this summer. I don't want to take my girlfriend up there because she'd be scared half to death up there, because that place just has, if you're somebody that is feels the energy of
mhm,
things, and you're susceptible to that, you definitely would know what I'm talking about. You're constantly on edge, even at 12 noon in the middle of a
mhm,
beautiful day with the sun shining down. You always feel like you're being watched. You're always looking over your shoulder. And once the sun sets down past the pines, and it starts to get dark right at that twilight hour, that's when you want to make sure that things that are left out are put away, to where nothing's left outside, but just maybe a low crackling fire. And even to sit out around a fire up there by yourself, the feeling is so heavy and so strong that no matter how much you love nature and the woods and being in the silence of a forest like that, you just don't feel safe being out around a fire. You want to get inside your vehicle, or if you were heading RV, it does this to everybody. And as you've seen in my videos that I've done up there on my channel, it's the reason why I believe that in some of the best weather in summer, and it could be a weekend, um, and no rain in the forecast, and I'm the only one up there. Nobody camps up there, and you got to ask yourself why. Well, I think I found the answer to that question. And because with the experiences I've had up there, and I did see a couple that got chased off in the middle of the night, I showed that in a
mhm,
video. Once people learn what that place is like, they don't go back. And it's free camping, mind you. It don't
mhm.
cost you anything to camp there. So it's not like people can't afford it. It's free camping. It's public. And it's a beautiful campground, small campground. But people don't stay there because of things that go on up there. I've heard tree knocks, and I've heard things rustling through the woods that sounded very, very large. I'm talking the size of like an Angus bull. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just but yet it will be just outside of your campsite, menacing, like it's taunting you, and it doesn't go away, and it will circle, and you can hear the sound as it circles your camp. And there's really that feeling of like, what can I do about it? Because you can't see it. And the worst thing that happened up there happened last year, and it caused me to call three different departments in the DEC Region 9 district. And I spoke to three different environmental conservation officers. And I was dead serious when I spoke to them. And I told them my age and my experience, so they know it wasn't just some guy that was out there camping for the first time. I've got
Mhm.
many years experience. And I told them what happened up there. And I explained this scream, Paul, that happened up there that was only 30 feet from my van. It was in my campsite because those
Mhm.
campsites are large. It was right in my campsite. And this scream that I heard after 1 in the morning was so amplified, so loud, that it literally went through the van. It went through me. It woke me out of a dead sleep. And as I woke up, because I mean, I was startled awake. It was so loud. And as I woke up, right in that second, the scream was still happening. It was still going out, and I could hear it echo off into the woods. And I believe that this scream could have been heard up to a mile away or more. It was as if it was played over a 500-watt guitar amplifier. It was
Wow.
extremely loud. And there is nothing, and the officers also confirm this. There is nothing in our woods that is natural to Western New York that would have the lung capacity to create a scream to that extent.
Mhm.
Whatever it was extremely large, and it was scary because the scream had like a separate layer of octaves. It was like a high pitched scream over a mid tone scream simultaneously at the same time. And I recently did a video where I played a short track of a mythical creature that has been used in movies. It does not exist. However, that audio of that scream is identical to what I heard. Identical. And that's what was so scary about it, because I had no idea what I was listening to and how it was possible that I was hearing what I was hearing. Because the lung capacity would have to be about the size of the lungs on a full grown elk, a 900-pound elk. And we
Hmm.
don't have elk in New York. And it was a bugle like that. It started out like that, where it was screechy, high decimal volume, and then it just rang out and just went deep into the forest. I could hear it echoing down through the woods, and it was so close to my van, so scary what I heard. To this day, I don't know what it was. I have no idea what that was, and nor did the other officers. So that was that. But that was
And
the scariest thing I ever heard in the woods.
and I saw your video where you played the facsimile of what it was. And just out of curiosity, what was the mythical creature
A
that
wraith, a
of the
wraith from
wraith,
Lord of the
right?
Rings. Those, if you saw the movie, it was those. They were like human. They were in human
Mhm.
form, but they wore long black cloaks, and they rode
Right,
horses, and kind of reminded me of like the headless horseman. Only these had heads, but they had no face,
right.
and they would make that sound in the movie, and that is exactly, honest to God, that is the exact scream I heard in the woods, and it was unbelievably loud. It was not any type of night bird like a large owl or even a bobcat. There's nothing that exists in the animal kingdom that would have the lung capacity to scream at that volume. And when I
Mhm.
say volume, it was off the charts of how loud it was. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I've told this story before. Back in the mid '80s, a group of us used to go up in the woods. It was this back road in a little area, off a path that we used to go to. And I went up there one day by myself, because I worked retail. I was off during the week. So all my friends were still working, and, I had the day off. And I heard a noise in the woods. And it was like, first I heard like heavy limbs breaking, and then it was like a horse, like something stomp, stomp. And it was the saran wrap type of creature. First I saw it, I was like, what the hell is that in the trees? Then it stepped out into the clearing, you know, and I could see this thing. It was huge. It had to be, geez, 7, 8 foot or better. I mean, I'd be looking up at this thing. And I took off running, and as I was running, it let out a scream. It was more guttural. And I don't recall it having like the two layers, like the thing you played,
Mhm.
but it was loud. And where I was running back to get to the car, down the path and over this little hill to the road, it was just echoing everywhere, just this screaming, like, "Rah!" And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I can swear on my life and my family, before God, what anybody wants me to swear on. I saw this thing, because I was there 5 minutes, maybe a little better. I had soda, chips, and I was gonna sit down and just hang out a little bit. And I heard the noise, and I turned around in case it was like a bear or something.
Mhm.
And I'm looking into the woods, and I see this sheen, like it was blurring out the leaves and the branches, but there was nothing there. And then as I got closer, it was like this blur in the woods. And then, like I said, it stepped out, and it was just surreal. And then when I first heard, the 411 missing cases, where people talked about this thing they saw that looked like saran wrap or the Predator when it was in stealth mode.
Right.
I damn near fell out of my chair. I was like, excuse my language, everyone, but I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I saw back in 86, 87. And I never would have, you know, I thought I was maybe the only person in the world that ever saw something like that. Now here's all these people saying they saw it in the woods, they saw it in the trees.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Well, another
definitely.
another reason why, you're hearing more accounts of that, though there's not a whole lot of them, but the reason why you're hearing of them now is because since the internet came along, people are able to share that with others. Whereas back in the 80s, prior to the internet and social media and all that, I'm sure a lot of people were seeing that thing back then.
Mhm.
I know I met up with something similar to that. However, it didn't give any blurry appearance. It was just you could feel it. You could feel its energy. You could sense the size of the thing, and you could hear its breathing as it
Mhm.
lumbered past me, and it was very, very large. And this thing was, the breathing was so high above me coming down towards the road, as it was like breathing downward to where this thing was all of 9 feet or better. It was very tall, very big. And I'm glad I didn't get to see it, because of anything of that size, well, it could have done whatever it wanted to do with me. But what makes these things show up where they do, when they do, I have no idea, because like I said, in all the years between that day, and it was a sunny summer day when that happened in 1989, to just the last 3 years of recent times, there was nothing in that gap. Anytime I was ever out remote fishing, remote camping, boating, whatever. And then all of a sudden now it seems like it's far worse. And there's I hear the tree knocks. There's the screams in the distance. This last one was the closest one because it was right in my camp. And hearing the things walking around in the woods that are heavy, very, very heavy at nighttime, and it'll move stuff. I mean, you'll see where the limbs on the young pines that are up there, they're dotted everywhere. And you'll see the boughs on those moving, like something went through them, and it disturbed the branches, and you'll see them moving because I shine my headlamp anywhere my head looks. There's a lot of lumens of light lighting up
Mhm.
the woods, and it's like I just missed it. As I turned, it went through, and by the time my light is on it, I'm seeing the after effects of the limbs moving from where this thing went through. And its step sounds very, very large. And it like plays games with you. And
Yeah.
that makes me uneasy because I don't know what it's capable of. And I don't like that kind of thing when I'm in the outdoors. I'm there to enjoy the outdoors, have a good, peaceful time, and just enjoy being one with nature. And then when something like this happens and kind of like takes all that I mentioned away, well, then it doesn't become enjoyable anymore. It
No.
becomes frightening. And but up there, there is definitely something that is lurking in those woods, and it deserves to be investigated by people that are interested in the matter. It would be a good location to do an investigation with those that have the equipment and the know-how and what to look for, because not only are there tree knocks, but there's trees up there that are not huge, but they're not real small, and they're twisted. They're twisted, and there's formations up there where they will be arched all the way back down to the ground. So you got a tree growing out, and it bows over, and the tip of it is like stabbed into the ground by force, and it stays
Mm.
that way. And then there's the like you hear people that talk about these Bigfoot rituals where there are large, pretty good sized diameter trees that are probably, 10, 11, 12 inches around, and will
Mhm.
all be leaned into a crotch of a standing tree, almost like a teepee formation. And these
Mhm.
things are not only long, but they're heavy. So could a person do that? Not without a lot of help. I do know that. But there's no evidence that these things were drugged through the woods. And if you're not cutting them up to make them lighter, something of that length and that diameter you could do the math of what something like that would weigh, regardless of the species of tree, and to be able to put them into the crotch of a standing tree as a support system, you would see evidence of where the end of that thing was drug, unless they're carrying the whole thing. And like I said, that would take a team of people to do that. And why would you even want to go through the effort of doing that just to do, what is seen up there? But the
Mhm.
evidence like that is all throughout the woods. So it makes me wonder, whatever is up there, is it leaving signs? Is it playing games? Is it leaving warnings? I don't know, because it'll let you have the daytime, but once it gets dark, that's when it
Mhm.
like wants to have its way with you. And that's what's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Um, but no matter what, you always feel like you're being watched the entire time you're there until you leave. So I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I saw the saran wrap predator thing, broad daylight, back in the day. I think depending on what it is, it doesn't matter if it's day or night, but they
Mhm.
definitely seem more active when the sun goes down for
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Have you ever watched David Pearson's channel, Really Big Monkey, on YouTube? That's the name of his channel, Really Big Monkey. Um,
Mm-mm.
he's a couple years older than me. He's 53. He's an avid outdoorsman, and on his channel, he gets into a lot of military surplus. He's a big machete lover. He reviews lots of machetes. He has just about every kind that's ever been made. And he has a story on his channel, and he's not a guy that tells stories. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this guy is pretty serious, very nice guy, very well spoken, never swears. Just a really down to earth, nice guy. But he does have a story on his channel about John's Mountain. And this guy lives in Georgia, and he speaks of a time when he went to stay alone up on John's Mountain, which is a distance from where he lives. And he speaks of an experience that happened up there several years ago that frightened him so bad that he left by the light of the moon in the middle of the night. And he speaks of an invisible creature. He says it would go from tree to tree. The tree that it leaped from would have like a sharp bend in it from where like it launched from, and then the tree that was neighboring it was still until it landed in that tree, and then that tree would start to move. So he says you could tell something was leaping from tree to tree. And then he said the whole tree started to shake as the whole thing came down. And he says, and when it ran across the ground, it would kick up the leaves because it would run at such a speed. And when he
Mm-hmm.
was seeing all this happening, but yet there was nothing there visibly to explain why nature was reacting this way to something that was disturbing it, it scared him so that he left with just a handful of things that he could grab, and he left a bunch of equipment behind, and
Mm-hmm.
he never went back for it. He left it there on John's Mountain, and he's never returned to this day. And whatever he left behind, he didn't go back for. And he says, I ran down the trail to the trailhead at the parking lot where his car was sitting. And he says he never stopped running. He ran
Mm-hmm.
and he ran, and he was afraid the thing was going to get him. And he was there was no time to even look back. He says, I just ran with everything that I had to my vehicle. I quickly unlocked it, threw everything in. He says, and he got out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And David isn't a type of guy that tells stories. So when he told this story, naturally it's very believable because it's just not what he does on his channel. But that was a moment he never forgot in his life, because I think it was a subscriber that asked him if there was anything strange that ever happened. And he says there was this one time. And then that's when he talked about John's Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And it scared him so bad to where he fled immediately.
Yeah, you shared that video, geez, a year or two ago. I
Yeah.
do remember watching that one.
Yeah.
And I do remember he said, right before he saw it, all the sounds of the crickets, all the sounds of nature just stopped,
Yeah.
dead silence. And
That's what happens to me too.
as he was running down the path, he said he was about halfway, to the car before he heard the crickets again. And he said, geez, he felt a little safer because, the nature was coming back to life. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's weird. You hear a lot of people talk about that too, that when they see these things, that everything is just dead silence, no birds, no crickets,
Yep.
nothing,
That's the way it is
you
up
know.
at Pineapple Junction just before these things that I experienced up there happen. And it goes so still, so silent. It's just void of all life. I mean, even insects. It's like the mosquitoes and the flies even go away.
Hmm.
There's nothing out. And so there's no breeze. It's almost as if you're inside of like this behind me, right here, this backdrop. If you could walk into this backdrop and everything be this still, and it's void of any noise other than your own breathing and your own movement. It's like this tapestry right here. That's what
Hmm.
it's like. It's like everything's stopped, everything's still, and there's no noise. And it's like all life is just void for a time. And then slowly it comes back. And, of course, nature is that way to where when there's a warning, it's a defense system to where animals will be quiet, they'll hide. But how the insects are affected too, I don't know. And unless it's some type of vibration that repels them. It's like it permeates throughout the area to where it like repels everything because it picks up on this vibration. So everything acts exactly the same way,
Hmm.
because everything feels it other than, and I can feel that there's something up, and it makes you nervous, but it
Yeah.
also, you feel like it's watching you, like it has an ability to see you and watch every move that you do because you never feel alone up there, even when you are.
Hmm.
So it's a strange place, beautiful
Yeah.
place, but strange.
I wonder if the insects and the animals sense it and they're quiet because they sense a danger, or is it something like if they are coming from another dimension, like somehow it's overlapping, their reality is overlapping more into our reality, and
Yeah.
somehow it's blurring those sounds out, that maybe we're standing in a very familiar place, but it's not. There's something else going on. Because I don't know if you
True.
ever heard these stories of people that have just disappeared. There's a story of a farmer, coming across the yard, supper time, his kids are on the porch, and he's just gone.
I
And
heard that story.
they heard his voice saying, help me, but he was nowhere around. And I had my stepdaughter's bus aide from years ago. I don't know how we got on the subject. The bus dropped her off, after school, one afternoon, and somehow she started telling me that she had a relative that happened to just walking across his yard. His wife and his daughter was out there, and he was a few yards away, and poof, he was gone. And they heard his voice saying, "Where are you? Help me! Help me!" Never seen him again.
That's scary.
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps, just to
Well,
think about it.
yeah, I think that you know, those things exist, and I've heard just in recent times that scientists now are trying uh to prove portals here on Earth.
Hmm.
And because they believe that these things exist and that it's possible. And so I don't think that it's just pertaining to the forest and remote areas like national parks and beautiful picturesque places where snow-capped mountains and that kind of thing. When people go missing in a city, I wonder, like, if someone's walking on their way home and maybe they take a shortcut and they go down through an alleyway, do you have to be like at the right place at the right time? Because maybe these portal entries, these doorways that we can't see, move around, and you just happen to be at the right place at the right time. So it's like
Hmm.
two objects coming together, and then you go from this reality into a different reality. So I wonder, when people go missing in the suburbs and in cities, and you hear about cases, because David Pilates, I think, even covers this on campuses where college kids will go missing in a populated area, and it's very similar to what happens in national parks. So I wonder if whatever is doing it in national parks, if it's also responsible in populated areas to where, it's causing people to disappear without a trace. And if that's the case, that's even more scary, because then that means we're not safe anywhere, regardless of where we are. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I did a video on this particular story where me and a friend of mine were driving down the road. We were going to Best Buy, and we saw this. It was wintertime, mid-February, and we saw this light on the trees across the road, and didn't think anything of it. It looked like somebody with a flashlight, shining it up in the trees. But as we got closer, the light came off the trees, and right over the hood of our car was the shape of a man, just made of pure light, with these big triangular wings on its back. And there was nothing but a big open field on the other side of the road. This was on Gulf Links Road in Middletown, New York. And again, I swear on my life and everybody I love that this happened. This thing went right over the hood of our car, lit up the interior of the car with a blue-white light as it went by. I could see, my friend's face behind the wheel, because this was, nighttime. It was pitch black on that road. There's no street lights. And when this thing hit the other side of the road, it went in head first, just like it went into a doorway, or a portal that we couldn't see. And then poof, it was gone, and she was driving and she said, she gasped like, holy, and I said, don't say anything, because I was getting certified in hypnosis at the time, and I know about mass hysteria influencing other people. I said, I just want you to pull the car over and think about what you just saw. And I want to get it straight in my mind what I just saw. And I said, okay. So the ball of light, it came over the car. It was the shape of a man, just made it like it was made out of a blue-white light. I said, all right, what did you see? And she told me the same thing. I didn't say a word, And when I did that story on my old show on YouTube, this woman got a hold of me, and she said, oh my God, that story really resonated with me. And this is scary, because she said she went in the middle of the night in her house to get a glass of water, and her daughter was sleeping on the couch in the living room. And when she came out of the kitchen, there was this thing hovering over her daughter, like it was looking down at her, like it was watching her sleep. And she said it was the same exact thing, the shape of a man. It was just a pure blue-white light, but it didn't have the big triangular wings. And she said it was like a horror movie. She walked into the room, she saw this, and she just froze. She just dropped the glass of water to the ground. She was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? And this thing looked up like it was looking at her, and then it just shot across the room, right through the window like a ghost. She said right through the living room window, and it was gone. So when you say we're safe nowhere, maybe we're not. If we're seeing these things
Right.
outside, and other people are seeing them, right in their living room watching their kids sleep, yeah, we're
Yeah.
doomed, brother.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about setting up cameras, like even in my room when I sleep at night, because sometimes the cats will react, and there's nothing there, but yet they're seeing something. And I just wonder if maybe an infrared camera would be able to see something that I can't see. But then again, I ask myself, do I really want to know?
Yeah.
Because if I were to see something on footage that I got, and it really made me feel uneasy, then it's like, how well am I going to sleep in my room after that? So sometimes you got to be careful with how much you try to get evidence of something just to answer your own questions, because if you see something that you would rather, after you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah,
So you got to ask yourself, am I prepared to see something that might be, unsettling? So I'm kind of on the fence about that. And I've been tempted to do that because I got the means to do it. It's just I don't know if I really want to do that yet. Maybe down the road. But yeah, I mean, there's crazy things that happen all the time, and I believe it can happen anywhere and at any time. And I really don't know what to think of it, because I don't know if they're the ones that really investigate this sort of thing, if they're going to be able to get the answers they seek, unless we just are not there yet with technology, that we have to develop something that is going to be able to detect these things to give us answers. And maybe the technology, even though it may seem advanced to us, it's just in its fetal stages until it's to the point to where we then can have the right equipment, both audio
Mhm.
and visual, to capture this unexplained phenomena with orbs, ghosts, hauntings,
Mhm.
all kinds of unexplained phenomena that happens in the world of these different, different topics.
Yeah, if you set something up in your room, it might be like that. What was the movie Paranormal Activity,
Right.
where the guy
Yeah.
sets up the camcorder, and his wife that's getting possessed, or his girlfriend, and
Yeah.
she's
That
standing
would
there
be
like
unsettling.
a statue, watching them for like 3 hours, just staring at them, watching them sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't want to see that. So,
Some entity in your room for like 2 hours, just watching you breathe.
yeah.
Well, here's a question before we end the show, and this is more of a spiritual nature when it comes to the missing 411. And my idea is, if there's something out there, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, and it's taking people. Now I've studied biblical prophecy for a lot of years, and you come across a lot of different theories, and I'm sure you heard of the rapture. God's going to take certain people away before things get really, really bad.
Mhm.
I used to believe in it, then I didn't. But now I read a lot of things that I say, geez, it, it's possible. It's certainly possible when you look at a lot of different spiritual practices, or old religions, even Native Americans that believed in, the ascension, you know, people, certain people leaving the earth at a certain time. So my thought was, if there's something out there that's unfriendly and it has the ability to take people where they're never seen again, then why couldn't God or the angels?
Right.
What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I agree with that. And I've thought about that very thing, to question which side is doing it. Is it evil that's doing it? Is it good that's doing it? Um, yeah, I mean, it's God's creation. We're God's creation. We dwell upon the creation He created for us in order for us to live here in the physical, in the flesh. And so, if there was something He wanted to harvest, I don't see why He couldn't, whether it be done through an angel or His own doing or whatever. I believe in all those possibilities. Everything we've talked about above, and
Mhm.
I do believe that that kind of thing can happen. And but we're never going to really know what's truly responsible until we know. We just don't know until we know. And so it's worth investigating. And who knows if technology will even permit to get the answers we seek. Maybe it will never be good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe it will remain a mystery, because there's a lot of things in this world that no matter how much we try to get answers to it, we just can't ever seem to solve it. I mean, look at the UFO phenomena, how long that's been going on, and how
Hmm.
long people have been talking about it and investigating it, and where's it really led ultimately. I mean, yes, now with infrared and the different technologies that have become available in recent times, versus the old days, that even the U.S. Navy and different armed forces can get these things on video. But still, it doesn't matter if it's in a video or if you see it with your own naked eye standing out in your backyard as you stargaze. It still's not answering any questions as far as how do these vehicles propel themselves, how do they defy gravity, how do they go at such Mach speeds and with G force, that would basically rip the average human being apart, and
Hmm.
be able to turn and change angles at such a drop of a hat. So though you could probably get the best UFO footage on video, you're still going to look at it with the same awe as if you were just standing there looking at it with the naked eye and be wondering, how does it do that? What is it? And where does it come from? But it's
Hmm.
definitely, manipulated by intelligence. It definitely has an intelligence to it, to where it knows what it's doing. And, but what its purpose is and why it's here remains a mystery, as much as what the thing's made of and where it comes from. So, it could be a whole slew of things that could be taking people when it comes to the 411 missing cases, whether if it's happening on a college campus, or on Mount Shasta or wherever, where these people are going missing. Something is happening. And all I can think about is, how terrifying must it be that it leaves all your supplies and your belongings behind and it takes you, at will, whether if you want it to or not. And what is happening to these people after they're taken?
Yeah.
That's what haunts my mind. What's happening to them after they're taken? Do they still live for some time and endure some type of horrific torture and
Hmm.
terror and great fear, to where maybe they would succumb to shock and like having a heart attack because they can't believe the surreal things they're going through? Or
Hmm.
are they killed right away and then their bodies are like autopsied and done with whatever this thing wants to do with them, kind of like with mutilated animals and the cattle phenomena? And I was watching a guy it's called Bigfoot Theory. He's got a lot of good videos. If you watch that channel called Bigfoot Theory, he
I've seen it. Yeah.
interviews. Yeah, well, you probably seen the one where he interviewed David, then the farmer that's got like 140 acres, and he's got
Hmm.
actual photographs of deer that have had their privates surgically removed, and they're ultra crystal clear, high definition photos of these deer that have had their heads twisted, and you can see the
Hmm.
lines in the neck where like the head went around like 3 times being twisted,
Wow.
and it would pile them up in piles 12 deer deep. And he says it wouldn't consume them, so all this meat was going to waste. I mean, 12 dead deer piled up in one pile. And he says, and then once they started to decompose and stink, then something would take them, almost like it
Hmm.
was saving it until it was desirable, then it would take it. But it didn't want it when it was fresh. It wanted it after it was rotted, and it would
Hmm.
take the whole pile and leave no trace behind. So I don't know. Crazy things that go on out there.
It's interesting you mentioned that because going back to John Keel, who wrote the Mothman prophecies. Um, he has an account in that book where a couple, there was a dead deer on the side of the road, and someone had hit it with a car, and then several days later, they were coming down the road and saw this thing, the Mothman, this big winged creature, holding the dead deer like it was taking it. So that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that they have a taste for rotten meat. They're waiting
Well,
for it
that's
to
what he thought.
decompose.
Yeah. He said it seemed
Yeah.
like whatever was interested in the deer, like where we prefer things when they're fresh. That's when we'll take something. You want a fresh
Mm.
donut over a moldy one. but with the deer, it was the opposite. It didn't want it when it was fresh. It considered it bad. But then when it was bad, like we would consider bad, that's when it was desirable, and that's when they would disappear. And
Yeah.
and so he believed it was something very large, because not only was it taking the whole pile of deer, but he also had a large white oak. Now he's got several large fields where they're lined with trees. And in this one particular field that he patrols with his gator, because he's got 140 acres he's got to take care of, a
Hmm.
large white oak fell into the field from the tree row. So it fell right out into the open field, the whole length of the tree. This is a whole entire white oak tree, limbs, the top, everything all intact. And he says it laid there for a while. And then he was contemplating cutting it up and everything, because so many times throughout the summer he does like to cut the high grass back, and it was in
Hmm.
the way. And one day he went down there to that field, and the whole tree, all of it, 100% was gone, and he never found it. He
Wow.
said something carried the whole tree off, an entire full grown, mature white oak, and it was no longer in the field. He says it was never cut up. There was no evidence of sawdust, of anyone sawing it up, no drag marks. He looked up into the other part of the property to see if maybe the tree got drug up into the wood. He said he never found it. He drove
Wow.
all over his property, all 140 acres, and that white oak was never found again. He has no idea where it went. The whole tree was taken.
Wow.
So that just goes to show you, whatever it is, what it's capable of.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It's weird stuff that happens out there. Maybe one day we'll know the answer. Maybe one day we won't.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it concerns me, Paul, when I go camping alone, because I don't have to only not worry about what could go wrong with my health when I'm out there by myself and not be able to get a 911 dispatcher, but you know, you're vulnerable when you're out there by yourself, because just because you're a male doesn't mean that something can't happen to you. You know,
Oh no.
I hope nobody ever goes out with a false assumption saying, well, you know, I'm a man, I can handle anything. Well, there's as many men that go missing as women. And
Hmm.
you know, so it does cross my mind, but I'll tell you one thing, Pineapple Junction is the only place in all the years that I've spent in the outdoors, regardless of where I've been. It's the only place where I do not feel safe, even at 12 noon in the afternoon. I don't feel safe there anytime. And at
Hmm.
night, it's off the charts. I mean, it's borderline. I'm wanting to leave after dark. And I force myself to stay, you know, because I have the trail cam set up on top of my van. This year, I'm going to be going up with external audio recorders that are
Hmm.
sensitive to pick up any type of volume of anything that makes noise out there, and to possibly record that scream if it were to suddenly just vocalize again like it did that night. And but I would definitely like to go up with other people. I'm going to see if this year if my brothers will join me, because going up by myself, I'll tell you, it's a place that just really makes you feel nervous because there's something so wrong with it. But I'll have to see what happens this year and what I can possibly capture. I know it's a long shot. Probably have a better chance of hitting the mega lotto jackpot, but you never know. And if I were to get
Yeah.
something, then you know it's not going to solve anything, but at least I'll have something either on video or audio to say, this is what I've been experiencing. Take a look at it, and what do you think? Just to get
Yeah.
other opinions.
I'll send you $10 if you pitch a tent on top of one of those mounds.
Oh yeah, you'd have to pay me more than $10. I wouldn't stay in a tent up there, even with three other people.
No,
Not
I
up
hear
there.
that.
That place is there's something not right with it. But yeah, I'll do a video of those mounds so you can see them. I'll do a video of them nice and slow. I'll get the whole row, and
Hmm.
then you could let me know, what you think. Send me an email and see what your thoughts on it, because it looks like an Indian burial ground, and maybe out of just respect, back when those dirt roads were created, people didn't disturb them and they just let them be where they are. But that's what they look like to me. That doesn't mean that's what they are. That's what
Hmm.
they look like to me, like it's an Indian burial ground. So I'll do a
Yeah,
video
you
of it
never
this
know.
year when I can get up there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you find.
Yeah, because I plan
I,
on
I,
going as soon as the road opens. It opens April 1st. So and I'm hoping the weather's been stays nice, because as long as it is, I can stay up there, because there's no electric and I got no way to heat the van. So I do need, some fairly decent warm nights to go up there to spend
mhm.
the night. And I'll do a video of the entire area like I did before, only more. And then I will cover those mounds to see what you think, to where you can see them yourself.
Yeah, I wish I lived closer. I'd like to get up there and
It's a fascinating
take
place.
take some of my paranormal, hunting equipment and see,
Yeah. Well, you would
what would
definitely, if you got that kind of equipment. I see, I don't know anything about that equipment. I only know just basic cameras, but if you were to go up there with the equipment that you have that is designed for that kind of study, I guarantee you would get stuff. You
mhm.
would get it with that equipment for sure.
Yeah, I don't have multi, like big expensive things, but some basics that would pick up, like an energy or electromagnetic,
Hmm.
you know, uh, you know, type of disturbances and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see, you know, what one could find in a place like that.
Yeah. You'd probably get like orbs going along those mounds or something, energy. I mean, who knows? I've seen lights in those woods up there where they'll dance amongst the trees, and then they go up high and they get into the upper canopy. And as they're going through the upper, they don't leave, they stay in the area. But as they go through the upper canopy, they change colors,
Hmm.
faintly and slowly. It's not done quick. They don't blink, they don't flash, they stay fully illuminated. But it could go from like a sunset orange to like a really pretty robin egg blue, and then they'll go to a red, and then a very bright yellow. And then after they're done, they're very playful. It's almost like this energy is having a good time and enjoying itself. It's like they play with each other. It's like watching children. It has a very innocence to it, and then they come down, and then they break apart and they spread out, and then they go low to the ground, and they'll zip right over picnic tables or a fire pit, and then they'll circle back, and it's just like they're having a good time, and it puts on quite a show, and I have no idea what it is, and
Hmm.
my cameras don't pick it up because, when it's dark out, it's hard to video anything through limo tinted glass in a van when you're inside. And
Mhm.
even if I was outside, I don't even think it would do it justice. So yeah, there's always something going on up there, whether it be noises and seeing weird structures with nature, and then the light show, and just all kinds of unexplained phenomena up there. So I think I am going to email some different um, people that are on YouTube. They have channels and they're also investigators. And I think I'm going to give them a heads up of this place because they travel around the United States. And if
Mhm.
they would be interested to putting this on their, their to-do place to check, it would be a good place to investigate. It would be a prime spot.
Yeah, well, one of the things I would suggest when you go this summer that you might want to try. I know you said in your videos you want to put like an audio outside of your van. So if you're inside, you can just hit the button and record whatever's out there.
Mhm.
But whether you do it with your camera, whether you take a voice recorder because you got some pretty good sound equipment, is try to pick up an EVP, the electronic voice pattern. And
Mhm.
that's where you just, sit quietly and ask questions. Is anyone there?
Yeah.
You know, um, are you friendly? Do you need help? Are you angry that I'm here? See what you pick up like in an EVP if you get anything on some of your ventures, whether it's a voice, whether it's a growl, whatever it is. See
Yeah.
if you could, especially when you see those lights, that
Yeah.
might be an optimal time if you had something that you could record from inside the van and just
Well, that's
ask.
what I'll be doing because I got a jack that will plug into it, and then the wire will go through the weather stripping of the side slider door, and it will also be plugged in to where instead of it running on its internal double A's, I'm going to have it powered right from my lithium generator, so it will run and record all night long as I sleep because I will ask questions and talk why I'm there before I go to sleep at night, but I want it to also be able to continue listening as I
Mhm.
sleep throughout all the hours of the night. So if something like that voice or that scream that went on after 1 o'clock in the morning, or at 3:30 or at 4:24 a.m., anytime something happens while I'm sound asleep, I want to be able to get all those hours throughout the night. And it's going to take a lot of going back and listening to the track to see what could possibly be on there. So it'll be time consuming, but I just don't
Yeah,
want to
it
miss
is.
anything.
Yeah, some things like that with EVPs and sound are definitely
Yeah.
time consuming to go back and listen with the headphones and then amplify it if you pick something up.
Hmm.
But well worth it if you get
Yeah.
something.
That's what I'm hoping to do this year.
You hear that Amityville voice saying, "Get out of my woods."
Yeah. Well, then I'd be leaving. I'd never go back. Yeah.
I hear that.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, I think our show is about over with. I thought it was a good conversation. And chime in the comments. Watch Kevin's channel. You have Getting Along Alone is the name of Kevin's channel.
Hmm.
He has a lot of outdoors things and personal stories and dips into the paranormal now and then. So chime in. Let us know what you think. What might be taking people. Is it friendly? Is it unfriendly? Um, what do you think might be at Pineapple Junction? Some of the things we talked about, the saran wrap creature, or these lighted beings, are they responsible for taking some of the people that disappear? Let us know what you think. It's a good conversation to have, I think.
Yeah.
But Kevin, I appreciate you being on the show. This was a good conversation,
Yep. No
and
problem.
uh, and
Thanks
I
for
hope
having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll do it again.
Okay.
And, I hope everyone found some interest in the topic and got something out of the show. So until next time, everyone stay in the light, stay in peace, stay in love, and be safe out there.
See everyone.
Now I got to figure out how to turn this off. Like I said before, we're amateurs. There we